It's a difficult subject, and it's the end of what we call the 6 perfections. It's the last perfection. So 6 perfections are what you practice when you want to increase your compassion and your wisdom qualities. How do you get started? How do you get moving? How do you do it? So then what's put forward is these 6 qualities. And the first one, which is said to be the easiest to practice, is generosity. So what we should have been doing is working through the 6 perfections, finishing with wisdom, which is what I talked about yesterday. But somehow we started with wisdom, and now we're going back to the beginning. But I think in some way there's a benefit to this. Because when we talk about the self and the ego, it actually brings up the ego. There's a fight back. You know, the ego says, you're not getting rid of me. I've been with you for a long, long time, and I've helped you over a long period of time. I get you out of bed, I give you a cup of coffee, I get you to the office. So you have to really think about this ego, this self, that's with you all through the day. And when it's negative, is it really helping you and others or not? This is the conversation that you start to have with yourself. Is it benefiting you or not? If it's benefiting you, leave it alone. Doesn't matter. From my point of view, doesn't matter at all. But if from your point of view, you can see this negative ego and it's disturbing you, and you think, so what can I do about this? Then we've already talked about it. So now we're going to talk about the perfection of generosity, which is opening your heart, opening your mind to the situation of others. What do they need from me? Okay? And we've got a few ideas. I gave you a definition. So BSM, do you know what BSM is? Oh, body, speech and mind. Body, speech and mind. It's the 3 activities. Body, then speech, and then mind. So where does everything come from? Mind, which motivates your speech and motivates the actions of your body. So body, speech and mind. So we've got 4 divisions of generosity, or 4 parts of generosity. The first one is material things. This is said to be the lowest form of generosity. So we need to make people comfortable, you know? They need to have a good enough salary, whatever they need, in order to support their family. They need material things. But at some point, material things stop as a motivation. They're not necessarily a motivator. So when we're talking about giving material things, then it could be money, bonuses, but also things like clothes, food. So there's people who involve themselves in soup kitchens and, you know, going out and trying to help the community. So in your case, you have to think, well, what motivates me to give? Not just to my family and to my friends, but actually giving outside of my circle of people that I know. So in this case, it's said that to give on a regular basis, but small amounts, is better than giving, say, once a year out of guilt. So for instance, you don't give anything all year, and you get to Christmas and you think, oh, you know, I didn't give anything all year, I'll write a check. And I'll write that check to the Red Cross or Save the Children or something like that. So if you get guilty and then you give something, the benefit is not so great as if you're giving based on a virtuous mind, a mind that wants to benefit others and doesn't want to hurt others. So what you're doing is developing the habit of generosity. So if you can give 50 cents, is it cents? You have cents, no? Cents. So 50 cents or a euro, if you can give on a daily basis, like there's a box somewhere and you give. So every single day, I give to this charity, I give to this charity, I give to this charity, on and on and on. It's much more beneficial than feeling guilty and then giving a larger amount. The purpose is to develop the habit. If you're not a very giving person, it's to open your heart to the situation of others and connect with that situation and do something about that situation. You are not going to be able to remove poverty. If the perfection of generosity is to completely remove poverty from the world, if that was the definition, then Jesus and Buddha have not been very successful. Right? So that's not the perfection. The perfection is you doing something with the right motivation. Okay? So you don't think, I'm going to be able to fix the world. I'm going to be able to completely remove all poverty. And if not, I'm unsuccessful. That's not the test of the perfection of generosity. The test is, are you doing it with a virtuous state of mind? And virtuous state of mind is, are you doing it with loving kindness or compassion or wisdom out of an altruistic motivation? Something that is not concerned with the self, what's in it for me, something that's concerned with the other. Okay? So I like the idea of putting something in a box, anonymously putting something in the box. Because when you write the check, they know where the check's coming from. And then you get a very nice letter. Thank you so much, you're such a nice person, blah, blah, blah. And then you're getting the payoff. But we're not looking for the payoff. The payoff comes from yourself, that you know that you've done something beneficial. And that gives you joy. You're not looking for others to write to you or to tell you you're doing something good. So the best thing is to keep it anonymous, to keep it quiet, not to go around telling everybody, I give €1 every day, to that Red Cross box. No need to say it. It's just from your own point of view, you're developing a very positive, you're looking for a new positive habit, some change of mind. So if you're already generous, if you're already doing this, then you just check, is the motivation correct? You're already doing the action. So the action is fine, but do you have the right motivation? And each time you do it, make sure you have the right motivation. In Kathmandu, already Fernando talked about this stupa. Did you go to the stupa in Kathmandu? The big stupa in Bodha? Yeah. Did you see many beggars around? Right. So this is a very popular place to go because they think, many Buddhist practitioners, we're going to get lots of money, right? So you go down to the stupa and you just want to go around, but sometimes there's these children running after you, wanting you to give money. So what I see is that often Westerners get really disturbed by these beggars and they virtually, without looking, just give money. Take this, go away. So there's no motivation, the action wasn't done very well, and then there's no sense of dedication, of rejoicing, of feeling happy afterwards, just, I gave some money. Okay? If you look at the beggar, you're aware of the person sitting there and they're suffering, and then you give money with the right attitude, in the right way, and then you rejoice and you feel happy, and you think, may all people have resources, may all people have money to survive and food and this sort of thing, then the mind is completely different. When I go to the stupa, I refuse to give money to the children. Children are now the main number of beggars, and I refuse to give money to children. Because if you give money to those children, then they grow up as beggars, they don't go to school, and they become professional beggars. And often they get into other things, sniffing glue, prostitution. So with children, I really don't have a feeling about supporting them. There's no need for these children to be beggars, except their children force them, their parents force them into it. You know? So this is the sense of looking at the beggar, and is it appropriate to give to this person? Now the Indian government asks you not to give money to children, because what's been found is they earn a lot of money. There was a BBC program, a documentary on it, about 2 or 3 years ago, and they found that there was one boy, I think he was about 12, 13, he was earning 3,000 to 4,000 rupees a month, which at that time was a very good wage. And they said to him, would you like to go to school? And he said, what for? I'm getting really good money. And they said, but what about the future? He said, oh, you know, I'll be okay. I'm getting really good money. And they said, but wouldn't you like to have education or a future job and this sort of thing? And he said, no, I'm not interested. And it was all because right now I'm getting very good money. The average wage at that time was about 1,000 to 1,500 rupees a month for a man digging holes in the ground. He was getting more than double, you know? So what it does is it hooks them into the money, and then often it's used for drugs and other things. So when we're practicing generosity, we have to go to the sixth perfection. Are we doing it with wisdom? Are we doing it without ego? Without looking for the payoff? Are we looking for the right person to give to, rather than the wrong person and just giving out of guilt? This is when the sixth perfection is practiced with the first perfection. Each perfection is practiced together with the others. They're not separate. So what's really good is we've talked about being egoless. So then when you're being generous, you can very much have an ego. You can very much have a feeling of, I'm giving. I'm a good person, I'm giving. And looking for something back. For instance, Christmas, do you give presents and expect nothing back? What would happen if you bought lots of presents for your family and they gave you nothing back? What would you do? The first year, maybe you think, well, this is a bit strange. What happened? The second year, you start questioning, do you still want to give gifts? Right? If you're giving gifts and they're not giving gifts back, would you continue? The altruistic person, the person who wants to give gifts, would continue. But isn't it often a sense of a bargain? I remember Christmas for you, you remember Christmas for me. Or birthdays, or anniversaries, or whatever it is. It's like this, you do something for me, I do something for you. But what if the other person stopped giving to you? How would you feel? Say you've been helping somebody in the office through generosity. I'll help you, I'll give you my time, my energy, my wisdom, my knowledge. And then next time you ask them, please help me. And they say, I'm really busy. I can't help you. You know, oh. The next time they ask you to help, please help me. Now, do you feel as willing to help, or based on their behavior, are you going to reduce the amount of help you give? This is what we need to check. How much ego is involved in the giving? Is the ego looking for something back? I often think of this like a boomerang. You know, that when you're doing something good or bad, you're throwing out boomerangs and it comes back to you. When it's something good, it comes back to you in the form of flowers and beautiful music, and you know, it's very nice and you enjoy it. But when it's something bad, you throw out the boomerang and it comes back and harms you. So part of generosity is removing the part that harms you, the ego that gives. Try and remove the ego and just do it because it's the right thing to do, not because you're looking for a reward, not because you're looking for something back. I think if you're giving away something that you don't like, there's not a good sense of generosity, you know? I mean, I've got this candle, I bought this candle in Kmart some years ago, and it's at home and it's still wrapped in plastic, and I think, oh God, this candle is so ugly. I need to get rid of it. I think it'd be a good Christmas present for somebody, you know? Or a good birthday present. I think His Holiness would really appreciate this candle, you know? And you give this candle and you go, oh, He might really appreciate it. So from His side, He might really appreciate it, because we can't say the object is beautiful from its own side. This is part of the wisdom teachings that we talked about yesterday. Is the object beautiful from its own side or from imputation from my side? You might think this is ugly. He might think this is really attractive. There's only an object, shape and color, but based on my perception of the shape and color, I decide whether I think it's attractive or not. Otherwise, everybody in the world would agree this is attractive. Okay? So we can see the mind of discrimination based on past action and past habit discriminates like or don't like. So if I don't like this object and I give it, what sort of feeling do I have when I'm giving it? Not so great. It's more like I'm getting rid of it. It's collecting dust. I should get rid of it. Whereas when I have a strong value for it, I really like this, and so therefore I'd rather give this to you because I really like it. That's the hardest gift to give. The object that you're attached to, that you give away. You know? It's really hard. I mean, I've been given objects by my gurus who've now passed away, and I recognize the attachment to the object, and now I give them away. Because I think if I keep attaching to them, anyway, at the time of death, I've got to leave them behind. I can't take them with me. But you can develop this subtle attachment over time. This person's very important to me, and I want to keep this object. So check, is there some way that you can give it to somebody else? Somebody that will appreciate it. And I think the other thing is too, if it's in your house and you haven't used it for a year, do you want to keep it? If it's in your house and you haven't used it for a year, do you want to keep it? Because there's so much rubbish in people's garages that's actually not rubbish. They consider it rubbish because they've shoved it in the garage. Oh, you know, second computer, another TV. It's rubbish. But for some people, it's not rubbish. It can really help them. And now there's projects to redo computers and send them to Africa. There's many, many projects where they will actually take these things and make sure they're working and then use them in schools and universities in other countries. Then what you call rubbish becomes something very valuable and very important to somebody else in another country. So it's not necessarily money. It's looking through your house and seeing the resources that you have. We have so much, you know, really. We have so much in our houses. We don't need that much. And it tends to clutter you. You know, you buy something else, and you think, gosh, there's so much in this house. What can we do with it? You don't want to throw it in the garbage bin. You want to use it in some sort of beneficial way. And so then you have to go online and research, where can it be used? I'm not saying give so much that you become poor. What's the point of that? Right? You become really poor and you sit outside with your begging bowl and you say to the rest of us, help. I gave away all my money, my house, everything. Help. Well, what's the point in that? But you have something that you can give. It doesn't have to be anything large. As I said, it can be 50 cents, but there is something that you can give. And if you start giving on a daily basis, you're building this habit of being open to the situation of others and to their suffering. And the more people are aware of that suffering and giving to that suffering, the more the situation will change and become more and more successful instead of less successful. Generosity creates success.